When we started the project, I remember by 1992, we were down in Florida, and I was training people to do the CE5 initiative, where Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where humans intentionally make contact. And we were out on a beach, and you probably have seen, if you've seen the film Sirius, it's very bad footage back then, high camera, but we were doing this, and then 4 ET craft popped, just pop, 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 pop. And in the film, it doesn't look, but they were quite close, and they were kind of blue. Beautiful, kind of circular with light in the center. And there was a colonel in the Air Force there, and there was a guy who ended up writing Bush's Brain, you know, about Karl Rove, the guy who wrote that book, Moore. He was there, all a bunch of people. And it was just a weekend thing. And of course, this went boom, straight up the chain of command. So within a month, I was getting contacts from the intelligence community. And basically they said, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I said, "Well, I think it's time for universal peace, and I don't think the government, the UN's going to do it, so I think we should." And in my inimitable way, I just said, "Isn't it time for us to move on?" I mean, world peace was supposed to be established like 100 years ago with the League of Nations. I said, we don't have time for that. It's time for universal peace. We blew through that window. And we're being visited because once we started detonating atomic weapons, boom, the whole universe came over to say, what in the world are these guys doing on this planet? And that's really how it all got ramped up. I mean, anyone who knows the story and the witnesses in the Disclosure Project. But it was interesting perspective. So I asked to come to this conference, and all the remote viewers, NSA, CIA, were there, and the head of Army Intelligence, and a bunch of folks. And I didn't know why. I went, I was naive back then. And I was put at the head table, sitting between the general and this spook, the spy from the National Security Agency. And they said, "Well, we heard about your little expedition in Florida." I said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "You want to hear that?" They said, "Well, we want to talk to you about that." So, boom, to a room till 3 a.m, where they tried to rubber hose me. And, and interestingly, they were really concerned about this. The whole reason the Disclosure Project happened is because people on the friendly end of the intelligence community who want this out reached out, but then the unfriendlies came at me like a pack of wolves. But the upshot of this meeting was, they said, "Well, who the hell do you think you are? You don't have permission to do this." I said, "I don't need your permission. I'm a citizen of the cosmos. I'm a free person." And I said, "I'm not going to be intimidated by you." And I said, "Go pound salt in someone else's sandbox." I'm very blunt and about that, but they were really getting nasty. And later it came out that a very good friend of Prince Charles's was there, and a woman, and she's very supportive of what we're doing, real friendly. And she said to me, "They're really jealous of you." I said, "What?" I'm a country doctor rambling around in an ER doing this because I think it's the right thing to do. And they said, "No, you're free. You're free. They're in this box. And they know that this is the Rosetta Stone of interstellar contact and communication in the future. And they can't go out of the box that they've been assigned without being whacked." Literally. I mean, it's terminate with extreme prejudice, TWEP. So that's what it's called. So I said, "Oh, that's an interesting perspective." Now, this is in, the spring of 1992, 23 years ago. And so what I began to realize is that we really are free. Thank God we're not the president of the United States or the director of the CIA or the people like that, because we're free. We're not on anyone's leash. And the power of the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind initiative is people going out doing this on their own, and that they cannot contain. They've contained a lot. Free energy, anti-gravity, the fact that we're not, a whole lot of stuff that I've been working for 25 years to bring out. but they can't control thousands, millions of people who know about this now, who are experimenting with it. We have an app where you can download the whole meditation, the remote viewing thing, the tones that transmit out into, all that is on an app. It's like, just on iTunes or Android, you boom, download it. So, we recently heard from a truck driver in Croatia who was driving, that's true, driving along. He took a rest stop, started practicing the meditation, and this craft materialized and floated right by his truck. And he had this beautiful mental connection with it. We get thousands of things like this every year from people all over the world. It's beautiful. It's on our website. So if you go to Sirius, SIRIUS disclosure.com, you'll see a link to these apps. And there's another app where this one's a free app where you can download it and you can see where all the other people who want to do this, where you live, are located. So you can connect with them. So you can go out with 3, 4, or 5 other people. Now this is, as soon as we launched that app last year, the whole globe lit up with little sea-city triangles, our logo. And people are doing this in India. They're doing it in Saudi Arabia. They're doing it in Iran. They're doing it in Africa. So that's how you create what Rupert Sheldrake called this morphogenic field shift, what people call the 100th monkey, which isn't quite accurate, but it's the power of people going into this state of consciousness, thinking and acting and doing something that begins to change the direction of the planet. Because it's unlikely the President of the United States is going to do it. Yeah, very unlikely. But we can. That's what's beautiful. We're free. But we have to first own and empower ourselves to who we are. And that, I think, the 25 years I've been doing this, that's the hardest thing for people to get, is that don't view yourself as a small. There's a wonderful quote, thinkest thyself a puny form, when within thee the universe is folded. Wonderful quote. The entire universe. And, Edgar Mitchell, who I brought to the Pentagon to meet with I was sort of introducing him to a lot of this. And my military folks set up a briefing for me and the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff back some years ago, Admiral Wilson. And I brought Edgar Mitchell, and, he and I were talking, because he started the Noetic Sciences Institute. And we started talking about the fact that every conscious being, that consciousness is a quantum conscious hologram. So you know what a hologram is? Like if you had a hologram of Marilyn Monroe here, you could take a little part of the skirt and there would be another image of the entirety of her. The whole is in every part. The whole is in every part. So every one of us have the whole of the universe and cosmos within us. So once we get our mind around that and accept that and begin to practice it, there's no limit. It's infinite. The possibilities are infinite. So I would encourage you to first understand that that's who you really are. Yes, you're an individual and you have a body and it will at some point expire, but the conscious part of you goes on forever. And while you're in the body, you can experience that aspect of yourself that goes on forever. You know, to wait till you drop dead like I did. I was 17. So, I'm one of these people. I guess that's the only way I would have gone anywhere, is kicking the, stubborn guy. And so that was a wonderful, in a way it was terrible, but it was a wonderful experience in the long run. I have no regrets about it. But when we begin to entertain the conscious mind within us, we begin to realize that we can be right here in this room in Boulder, wherever you are, and you can see what's going on at the White House right now. You can see what's going on at Buckingham Palace. You may not want to. You can see what's going on out by Saturn. On the rings of Saturn, there's a massive extraterrestrial spacecraft that's miles across, not thousands of feet, miles. It's been imaged by the Cassini probe, Lockheed Martin operating it, and one of their chief executive guys called me and said, "We've imaged this huge thing." I said, "Yeah, I know, it's out there." They're waiting for us to grow up. And if we don't, they're ready to help in case we blow the whole system. But it's like Tom Beard, Dr. Beard, the physicist who was doing all these things on 0 point. He says, "Now don't get me wrong, the fools may blow it yet." But we have an opportunity to fix this planet before it gets too far out of control. And that's really what this is about. It's about transforming the planet through understanding the transformative power of the mind and of thought and collective action. But to do that, we first have to begin to experience who we really are, the mind within. And remote viewing is a pop culture term for what I call the way of the seer. Every civilization has had its shamans or its folks who could do this. And at one point, I believe the ancient Shambhala kingdom really did exist, and probably everyone in that society had that ability and was enlightened. And that was just a little point in time, and then it fell into darkness. We're getting ready to enter an era, it's called a yuga, a big cycle, where every single person on the planet will be in this state of cosmic consciousness and enlightenment. And eventually, thousands of years into the future, everyone born on this planet will already be in that state, because it'll begin to be encoded in the DNA. It'll be encoded in, and the whole thing with genetics now is epigenetics, and consciousness affecting genetics, your genes. And there are all these latent capacities within the human being that are ready to be unlocked. And they've done in neuroscience and genetics that when you meditate, you literally are altering what they used to think weren't operative genes, which epigenetic, what a long time ago was called junk DNA, the 70% they call junk, actually begins to operate and change. And so the mind and the brain and the body actually change as you go into these meditative states. This has been proven. There are very, very good research on this. So that means all of us have this ability. And so if we use it for the good, it will transform the planet quickly. Now, going back a few years, now if you go back and study every culture, the ancient Greeks, the Gnostic Christians, the ancient Vedas, every tradition has in their teachings this aspect of the mind and spirit. And it's used in different terms. There's a different lexicon in every culture, but it's exactly what we're talking about. It's this aspect of ourselves that's in the unbounded, infinite, eternal field. And that's actually what that's how we're awake. The mind is always plugged into that. Now, we want to separate ourselves from it because of comfort, mainly. Because when you begin to enter that state, it's like, you ever gone diving or snorkeling, you go over where it gets 1,000 feet deep? A lot of people they hold on to themselves. You have to let go. And then it's beautiful. It's like diving off the high dive. You have to learn to let go. So you get in the right position and you acknowledge it, and then you let go. It's like the ancient Sufi master was talking to some of his students, and he was trying to teach them to levitate over the water, which is one of the ancient cities, Siddhis, that are in the Vedas. And this is something everyone can learn to do eventually, and levitate. And the ancient early Christians actually in Alexandria were known to levitate in their temples, and before it all got squashed. And this one man student was saying, I am afraid I'm going to drown. And the teacher said, leave thyself behind and then walk upon the water. Leave yourself behind. So there's this balance, and this is what I want to sort of share tonight with everyone, is getting into that state, and there's this harmonic balance that you reach where you're present, but you've let go. And you've let yourself connect to this larger self, this unbounded aspect. And for a lot of people, it's really the hard part about it is first understanding that that's really who they are. And then secondly, is letting go and letting themselves, in a sense, dissolve into that state because they have anxieties about it or fears. And what I tell people is that there's an aspect of your individuality that will never go away either. So don't worry about it. You're not going anywhere. It's not going to, so let go of the fear, understand who you are, and then accept it and empower yourself to do it. To me, that's more important than any technique. If you understand what I'm trying to share here, and that's this empowerment of yourself to become a cosmic being, which we all are. We were born that way. Now, this began to be studied. I'm going to get into something that's a little disturbing to people, but I think you need to know about it because it's a distinction with an importance. There's nothing new under the sun. This ability has existed within humans for years, and it can be used for wonderful things, and it can be used for naughty things. The intelligence community, since the 40s and 50s, have developed techniques of using remote viewing to spy. So everyone probably has heard that the CIA had a program and the NSA has had a program where they were spying on the old Soviet Union. What you don't know is that the things that, Ed Dames and other folks have talked about, which are techniques that would help people, and the head of Army Intelligence who took his folks to the Monroe Institute, his young guys through the Monroe Institute, what you don't understand is that they were trying to just force these people to have one capacity. And let's look at it this way. Pure consciousness, the unbounded mind, has within it 1,000 different powers and abilities. Remote viewing, precognition, levitation, materialization, teleportation, bilocation, trilocation, all of it. But if you focus only on one, what's called a siddhi, S-I-D-D-H-I in the Vedas, one ability, to the exclusion of your overall development, it's an asymmetric development. Very important. What I'm saying now is critical. Because in my early days when I launched this project, I got to meet Joseph McMoneagle and David Morehouse and Ingo Swann and all these folks. And they all told me, not together, but separately, that the people that were rammed through those programs. And David Morehouse, I was at a party in Manhattan with him, and before his book came out. And he said, everyone became alcoholics, suicidal, drug addicts, etc. Why? Because they were asymmetrically developing one ability without developing the whole being and the whole consciousness. There's a message, there's a lesson in this. And in fact, there were the head of Army Intelligence, quite a few of those young guys committed suicide because they began to have experiences that were real that they weren't ready for, didn't have any preparation for. So it's really important, in my opinion, to develop higher consciousness, and then all these different abilities spontaneously begin to unfold, as opposed to focusing only on one ability. You see what I'm saying? To the detriment of your symmetrical, whole, conscious, spiritual development. Now, this is a very hard lesson the CIA and Army Intelligence and these folks went through. Man, I got to know all these people personally, very, very intimately. And I told them, I said, well, my approach is a little different, because what I think people need to do is they need to go to source. They need to go to, you all still see me if I sit here? They need to go to source, and then they will be able to spontaneously intend these abilities without it being something that completely throws them out of kilter. Now, this is why a lot of people have asked me, because some of you have heard this story. There was a man in 1956 who developed an electronic device that would enable you to wear it, and it would cause you to go into a state of consciousness where you could remote view with an electronic assist other places. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. 56. I was 1 year old. I'm no spring chicken. So he offered this to give it to me because he was in his 80s and he wasn't going to be alive much longer. I said, no, I don't want it. I said, too dangerous. I'm already being hunted down by a pack of wolves. And I also said, I don't think it's... But what was interesting, I said, well, what happened to it? He says, there was a front company for the CIA, Alphametric Corporation, bought it, took it. And he had an NSO on it, National Security Order, where he couldn't do anything more with it. But he still had some of his prototypes. And I said, no, I'm sorry. I really don't think it's time. I don't want it. I'd rather people learn to meditate and do this holistically. because if you do it that way, you're going to have enough wisdom not to use these abilities for harm. Now, this is the mistake the intelligence and the CIA and the military, they didn't have the wisdom. This falls into the category, not everything you can do should be done. Because you get into this Dr. Strangelovian craziness, like Dr. Strangelove, where just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And that requires some wisdom. So they were lacking wisdom, and it ended up being kind of a disaster. So when you hear about the NSA programs, like that Ed Dames, that was like remote viewing 101, that were non-technology assist. And that's actually in the whole MK Ultra revelations of the Senator Church hearings in the 70s. That was all the entry-level stuff. And in another compartmented operation, it was this high-tech electronics, trans-dimensional physics and electronics. And that was fully developed in the 40s and 50s. So what that means is there are no private conversations anywhere on Earth. The head of Lockheed Skunk Works, Ben Rich, said, and we're not talking about Edward Snowden's revelations. Those are linear systems. Those are things the president knows about and the Senate Intelligence Committee knows about. I'm talking about the unacknowledged special access projects, the USAPs, super secret projects, and the real action since the 40s and 50s were in these sort of electronic systems. And that you probably have never heard. I rarely talk about it. And the only reason I'm bringing it up here is to say this has been routinized, scientifically reproduced since about the time I was born. At least then, this is just one person. I've heard other stories. My military advisor, one of them, was read into or briefed at the White Oaks Naval Facility in Maryland, it's closed now, of a electronic system where they could basically go to any point, any space, any volume of space, like this room, and pull out of what they called the white noise of space-time, the conscious mystical tradition, it's called the Akashic Record, and pull out anything that was ever said or done in that volume of space. That system was fully operational in 1974. All right, 41 years ago. That's when he was read into it. So I'm opening this, pulling this curtain back for you, just so you understand that at the highest levels of the intelligence, or darkest levels, this has been developed. But unfortunately, it's been used for some rather nefarious and unpleasant things. What we need to do is do it in a way that's holistic and use it for the good, okay? And it's a countervailing. Because the other is already running. It has been up and running since about the time I was born, and maybe a little before. Some people say some of this was back in the 30s and 40s. Don't forget that even anti-gravity, so on electromagnetic gravitic effect, was T. Townsend Brown in the 20s. That's up to 28, 29, the Kolosky-Frost experiment. So high voltage systems, and they're crossing over into these other dimensions. It's not just free energy and anti-gravity. It's also consciousness-assisted technologies and technology-assisted consciousness. So we have developed these technologies. We, I say, people on this planet, using our taxpayer dollars. Your tax dollars hard at work. But not always has it been used wisely. And I think that we have to say, okay, we're not part of that world, and frankly, I don't want to be. Neither should you, if you know it's good for you. A lot of people say, oh, why didn't you take that system? I said, are you crazy? First of all, I'd been killed probably within a day. Secondly, it would have gotten out and it could have possibly been misused by other people. If you develop consciousness in this holistic way, you're also going to develop your heart and soul in a way where you're going to intuitively, instinctively want to do good with it, want to enrich the world, not do it for selfish purposes. And if you do it for unselfish purposes, it grows very quickly. If you don't, there's a karmic bounce back and you find yourself really in trouble, which is what these folks in the military told me happened to all these guys. So there's a real wisdom in understanding how to approach this. So my approach that I want to share today is I would be cautious about shortcuts that asymmetrically develop an ability like this without also at the same time developing your overall spirit, consciousness, higher states of consciousness. because I think that in the long run, it's deleterious to your overall evolution.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the next one right here on the Best of Dr. Stephen Greer.